For the first time ever in internet's history, two of the best personal development and business experts in the world together in this podcast.
So at the beginning, it's very, very hard to make any money at all. The first million is very, very difficult, but the second million is inevitable.
Brian and I are pioneers. And when you're a pioneer, you go first. Now, when you go first, you jump the fence. You go where no one else has got. And when you're a pioneer, you'll be misunderstood.
What's the advice that you would tell a young entrepreneur that wants to start a business and become very successful?
Great question. Glad you asked it.
And I'm talking about John Maxwell, author of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and Brian Tracy, author of the Phoenix Seminar. These two great experts have been mentoring me for years, and I just got the greatest idea. What if I invite them both to an event and make a podcast with them together?
When you stop blaming, all your negative emotions stop. It's like slap. So the great job of life is to eliminate negative emotions. And so you make a decision, I'm not going to have negative emotions in my life.
So your best excuse, which is your best excuse, is your worst excuse because you believe it. They said, well, then what would be your favorite thing? I said, learning. What would be your proudest accomplishment? The thing that you'd say, of all the things I've done, that's number one.
So, welcome to Legends, and for me, this is by far one of the most important and iconic episodes that I've ever done in my life. We'll talk about success, we'll talk about personal development, we'll talk about how to become a successful entrepreneur, we'll talk about relationships and how to create a very beautiful and lasting marriage. So stick to the end because this podcast is going to give you tons of wisdom and a lot of beautiful insights that will help you become way more successful.
That was actually one of the things that you did a lot, right? Like asking important people for lunch, right?
Every month I had what I call a learning lunch. And I asked them the questions. I asked him the questions. Of course, that's the day you taught me about international speaking and said, John, you got to prepare for it. In case the economy isn't good here in the States, you could still travel internationally. But that was a great day to me, Brian. You poured into me that much, literally, because of the advice you gave me, has been worth millions of dollars to me. You sat down and shared with me your experience because you were traveling internationally and I wasn't. And you said, John, you get ready to do that. And so I did. So thank you.
You have always been an inspiration to me, John, and what you've written and what you've spoken and what you've recorded. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, I thank it. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I tell you.
Wow.
When you're looking up on stage and you see one young man and two old men, let me tell you, when you see the two of us, think of this fact as true. Consistency compounds. Just think of the fact we've been teaching this message around the world to millions of people. And then when you see Spencer in the middle, you understand he will stand on both of our shoulders. Brian and I are pioneers. And when you're a pioneer, you go first. Now, when you go first, you jump the fence. You go where no one else has got. And when you're a pioneer, you'll be misunderstood because people, they've never been there. So they're saying, what are you doing? They'll never understand you. And when you're a pioneer, you have to have a heavy coat because you'll take a lot of arrows. A lot of people will shoot at you. But here's what you know. Brian and I are pioneers. We've been in this business for a long time. But we did it for people like Spencer and people like you. And here's what we know. A pioneer knows they go first, but somebody will come behind them that'll do better than they did. Brian and I expect all of you, Spencer, to do better than us and stand on our shoulder. How's that, okay?
Let me see two things. One of the definitions of a pioneer is somebody laying face down in the dirt with arrows on his back. That's a pioneer. But the second thing is the Hispanic entrepreneurial population that Spencer has brought together are becoming the most dynamic group in the United States. And these are some of the best people in the whole world. And we love you guys very much here.
Ryan's exactly right. In our time, we have seen the Hispanic people rise. I mean, absolutely rise. And some of the hungriest, most entrepreneurial, successful people I know come out of the Hispanic world. And so we're very proud of you, very proud.
Yeah, I got a chance to speak a little bit. I'll share some of my ideas, but one of the things is these people are not afraid to take a risk. And they have learned what they need to learn, and then they've taken a risk. And that's the big difference between people who succeed very low, the bottom 80%, and the top 20% people here.
Yeah, yep.
I'm curious, what would you say, John, has been the number one thing that has made you successful? And I want to ask the same thing for you both. So what has been your habit, your thought?
One of his answers better than mine.
It won't be. What's made me, I think, successful would be two things. Somebody asked me the other day what my favorite thing was. They said, is it writing? Is it speaking, communicating? Is it creating? Is it starting companies? And they gave me the list. I said, none of them. They said, well, then what would be your favorite thing? I said, learning. I love to learn. I love to learn now more than I've ever wanted. I think when you're hungry and you're humble, you want to learn, you're teachable. That's how I've grown. And so I would say my key to success is that I'm still learning. I'm still asking questions. I'm still growing, and I'm hungry to learn.
Yes, I agree. Lifelong continuous learning is the most important thing that I ever discovered. Discovered it as a teenager and just sort of fell in love with learning, and I've never stopped reading. I still read 2 to 3 hours a day and underline and take notes.
Yeah, I do too. I still when I read a book, I read it twice. The first time I read it, I mark it.
Yes.
Put the little notes in it and little stars, and which are all reminders I need to get back to it. So the first time where I read the book, I mark the book. The second time I go to the marks, and the book marks me. Wow. That's how I read. So I read it twice.
So I guess that you both are good readers. Like I know that you've read how many, like over...
How many books?
How many books?
Maybe 6,000.
6,000 books. Do you have a count? Or on how many books have you read?
Not that many. I read every day too, but I mean 6,000 books.
Wow. When you think back, you probably have.
But you know what I have to do? In my library, I have a section in my library of books that have marked me and have made a difference. And I keep them in one section just to look at them so that I'm continually grateful of the men and women like you, who I was first introduced to you, Brian, through your books. Before I heard you speak, I read your books. And then I heard you speak, and then, of course, we became friends. But your books marked me. And again, you've expanded and extended your influence beyond yourself by your books that you've written. But I think I love my section of books that mark me because I look at them and it reminds me again. It just reminds me of how important books have been and mentors have been in my life. Where would I be without the books that I've read? Where would I be without people like you who mentored me? And I wouldn't be where I am. And
where would I be if I hadn't read John Maxwell's books?
I was going to ask that. What's your Brian Tracy favorite book and why? And what's your favorite John Maxwell book and why? What have you learned from John?
I like the laws of leadership. That was a real turning point in my life. It led me to a lifelong study of leadership.
Yeah, let me tell you something about 3 of the books that I read, Brian. The thing about you, Brian, when I read you, I loved your writing, but I fell in love with you. I said to myself, his writing is good, but he's better. And I want to meet him. And that's where I started intentionally asking if we could get together, because who mentors you is important as what they say. What they say is information, but who mentors you is the spirit of the person, which is contagious. And Brian Tracy's spirit got into me when I started reading his books and when I started listening to him and seeing him. And it was just absolutely life-changing to me. And if I'd like to throw a question, what book that you read was the most life? Can you look at one book and say, of all the books I ever read?
Yeah, it was a book by an Austrian economist named Ludwig von Mises, and it was called Human Action. And it's considered to be perhaps the very best book on economics. And he spoke about the free markets, incentives, hard work, all the things that we believe in. Fundamentally, he expressed them and explained them, and explained that this is the key to human prosperity, is a constant commitment to helping other people, customers, by improving their lives in some way.
Okay, I have another question to ask you. That is, of all the people that you ever met,
right,
who was the person that just absolutely captured you the most, and you just say, they were helping me to be where I am today?
There have been so many, and I could even say you or Spencer. I met a teacher once before I'd ever gotten into seminars named John Boyle.
Yes.
Who gave a seminar called the Omega Seminar at a little sort of a motel in Central Oregon, and they took about 50 people around a big table, and he just spoke for 3 days to Turk or stream of consciousness about personal development, personal success, superconscious mind, things like that. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. It was like running through a house at night, turning on the lights. And I was never the same after that. I became a lifelong student and teacher of personal success.
Yeah. And how old would you have been at that time?
I was probably 35 at the time.
Yeah. Was there anyone else beside that kind of molded your
people that I knew indirectly? My favorite spiritual teacher is a man named Emmett Fox, and he wrote a series of books, but his best was Sermon on the Mountain. And it was a book that explained spiritual principles in a wonderful, wonderful way. And I was never the same again afterwards. I read hundreds of books on spiritual development from all the best authors in the world, but that was the starting point.
So another question I want to ask you is...
Well, so you have to answer the same questions you're asking.
We don't have time enough. Yeah. So of all the things that you have done, by the way, let me just say something. Just one moment. I'm coming right back to you. Let me just say something about asking questions. In fact, I wrote a book called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. If somebody asks me, the key to learning from people, it's the questions I ask. Because when you ask questions, you control the conversation on the things that you need in life. And the reason I'm asking these questions to Brian is I want to learn from him, and I want to be able to receive from him some things that I can practice and do when I take off here pretty soon. And so I want to do that. So of all the things that you have done in your life, you've done so many things for so many people for so long. What would be your proudest accomplishment? The thing that you'd say, of all the things I've done, that's number one.
I'm married, best woman in the world. And I had 4 children, 4 best children in the world.
Isn't that huge, huh? Years ago, I asked myself a question that really helped anchor my life. And the question I asked was, what is success to me? Personal success. Because the world will try to throw success at you with all kinds of definitions. And I said, I've got to be true to me. What's success to me? And the reason I asked that question is because at that age, things were starting to move well for me. And I saw it, and I didn't want to lose myself, and I didn't want to get off track. Because how many times, Brian, you see people, they're very successful, then they do stupid stuff, and you just look at them and say, what happened to them? And so when you said it, when he's talked about his family, so I came to the conclusion after, again, researching and searching my heart for a while. Here's my definition of personal success that just kind of fits into what Brian said. Success to me is those who know you the best, love and respect you the most. Wow. I think that's success. Those who know you the best, your family, they're the ones who love and respect you. In fact, I'm going to explain something to you. If those who don't know you well like you better than those who do, you got problems. Because my family, they know all my strengths, but they also know all my weaknesses.
So the question is, what is your greatest accomplishment?
Brian, you're just jumping in. I love that. Besides the family, obviously, to me, is the people that I've developed that are on my team.
Yes.
I have the most wonderful team of people that help me do well in life. And when I look at the people that are my executive assistant, Linda's been with me for 37 years. Wow. My head of my writing team that helps me, Charlie's been with me for 31 years. My CEO's been with me for 26 years. So, I have people that have been with me for a long time. And when I look at them, I say, it's these people that have kept me in the game. It's these people that have really let me stand on their shoulders. And so I think, people think of the books you write or the places you've been, but I just think it's the people that I've developed and they've done so well.
Let me tell you a great story.
Good. I want to hear it.
They made a movie about P.T. Barnum. And during the movie, they talked about how he was supposed to have said, there's a sucker born every minute.
Yes.
And at the end of the movie, he keeps turning to the camera and speaking to the viewer. End of the movie, he turns and he said, They say that about me. He said, but that's not true. He says, all my life, I've sought to bring the greatest entertainment in the world to the average person. And he said, I would never call them suckers. He said, because it's you who makes me possible. And I never forgot that. It's you that makes people that we work with.
Isn't that true, though? Those closest to you determine the level of your success. Because you're young, you want to continually develop those people around you because they will determine how well you do in life. Isn't this fun to have Mr. Brian out here? This is so...
I think I'm dreaming right now. For me, this is like a dream come true. It is a dream come true, actually. But I feel like I'm dreaming. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
So when you were young, let me ask you a question. When you were young, what decision did you make in your youth that allowed you to do well and get started well?
I came from a poor family, and from the age of 10, I had to work to buy clothes. And I learned that I could, and that if I wasn't afraid to work, I started knocking on doors and selling newspapers and soap and things like that. If I wasn't afraid to sell, to ask people to buy my product, I could take complete control of my life. And that is why these are some of the most wonderful people in the world, because they're not afraid to take a chance. They're not afraid to take a risk. They're not afraid to hear the word no and to experience rejection and temporary failure because they believe in themselves. And the very fact that they're here and they've come so far and spent so much time and money being with us, it is they who make us possible. And if we're fortunate, we can make them even more possible.
And life is very reciprocal, isn't it? It comes back to us. What we give to others comes back to us. And, I want to always encourage you to be a river, not a reservoir. Keep the water flowing. Keep moving into the lives of people. And don't hold for yourself. Let it flow. I'm a person of faith, and I've often said, God will only give to us what He knows will flow through us. Wow. Another question I'd like to ask you is, in your life, is there something yet that you have not accomplished or achieved that you sit there and say, I'd either like to, and I haven't, or I need another 10 years to knock that one off? Do you have something out there that you just say, I'd like to do that before?
Well, my goal for many, many years was financial, to achieve a certain level of finances. And the wonderful thing is, Jim Rohn used to say that when you lose your money, you get to zero. That's usually the end of it, he said, but now you go all the way past it is zero. Well, when you start to earn a lot of money, we talked before you came about becoming self-made millionaires, entrepreneurial millionaires, totally, because that's where most millionaires come from, is they start and build a successful business. And that's what Spencer has taught them how to do it. You sell stuff and you make a profit and you save part of that money. And then, as you mentioned earlier, compounding, it begins to compound. So at the beginning, it's very, very hard to make any money at all, but then it becomes inevitable. Again, the great line is that the first million is very, very difficult because you must become a totally different person. But the second million is inevitable because now you're the kind of person who makes $1 million. And if you lose it all, let me go back again.
Because you know how to do it.
No, you don't know how to do it, but you must go through an enormous amount of failure and disappointment and rejection and loss and everything. When I started my own business, from working for other companies, I learned how to sell again. I sold my house, I sold my car, I sold my
That's funny. Isn't that true in all of our lives? We just didn't go make money and never have setbacks, failures, or losses. But you just want to keep that road. But there's a lot of dips in that whole process.
Well, I've spoken to more than 5 million people in seminars, averaging about 1,600 people per seminar, my sales seminars. And I'll ask them, I say, what is the most important quality you can have to be successful in sales and in life? And I let them think about that for a while. And I said, the answer is to become unstoppable. Become unstoppable. I've written books on the subject of unstoppable, about unstoppable. And so how do you become unstoppable? Well, it's so simple, is you become what you think about most of the time, but you also become what you say to yourself. Please say to yourself all day long, I am unstoppable. I am unstoppable. That is the great guarantor of your success, is if you never stop, you must eventually be a big success.
Somebody said the most important voice you ever listen to every day is your voice. What you say to yourself.
What do you say to yourself, John, every day?
I'm unstoppable.
I learned that from a great man. You need to meet Brian. If you'd meet Brian Tracy, you'd learn that unstoppable. I absolutely believe what we speak to ourselves
Yes.
determines what we do.
Yes.
I believe that, and I am stoppable. Another one that I say to myself often is that there's always an answer. And so when I don't find the answer, I know that there's an answer. I just haven't found it yet, which keeps me looking for the answer. But then when I find the answer, I go another step. I say, first of all, there's always an answer. It keeps me in the game. When I find the answer, I say to myself, but there's a better answer.
Wow.
Well, I found the answer, so I don't need to think. No, I found the answer. Now, there's always a better answer. And then when I get to there's always a better answer, I go to a third level. There's always more than one answer. But it's the same kind of a game, whether it's unstoppable or there's always an answer. It is giving us something to keep going. You should never leave something. You should always go to something. And that allows me to keep going in the right way and not ever stopping or not ever saying, well, there wasn't an answer. Because, one more thought. When I see a person making excuses, I immediately know they're in trouble. They're in trouble because here's what happens. If you use excuses a lot, you'll get good at it. And when you get good at it, you'll find what you call the best excuse. So your best excuse, which is your best excuse, is your worst excuse because you believe it.
Because you hide behind it.
And you hide behind it, Brian. Brian, you and I need to go on the road together. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I began teaching to my children as they were growing up, and Michael is here, is that you would never give up. You would never give up. And they say, oh, what? When they were young, and I say, well, one thing I know about you, and I'm your father, you never give up.
Yeah.
You never give up. And that's what you need to say to the important people in your life, is keep reminding them, you may have setback, but you never give up.
Actually, John has a quote, and it's people grow into the conversations they hear about themselves, right?
Yeah. I've heard you say that many. People grow into the conversation they hear about themselves, and that's what you were doing as a father, Brian. You were putting light, the seed of light into your children's life, and you're saying, but you'll never give up. See, because the first thing, when we headed back, firstly, our first thing is, I want to give up. That's natural human tendency.
And they never give up. I mean, they didn't even realize it, that I was programming their little mind.
Just absolutely life-changing. And I love mentoring my children and my grandchildren. I mean, again, when people say, who's the most important people that you mentor, I just wrote a book called High Road Leadership. And it's the 12 distinctives of what does a high road leader look like, with the subtitle, Bringing People Together in a World That Divides, because we have such a divisive world. And with high road leadership, there are 12 distinctives, and I just get my grandchildren together and we go through one each time, and what are you learning and how do you apply it to your life? It's life-changing. It's life-changing to pour yourself into your children and your grandchildren.
I admire you so much for the relationship you have with your families. And there's one thing that Florencia and I admire you for, which is the relationship you have with your spouses. So I know you both have a very successful marriage. I know both Barbara and Margaret, and they are both like wonderful, wonderful persons. So I actually want to ask you, what's the secret behind a very successful, long, very fulfilling marriage? Because I believe it's something that's missing today. And I believe that you are the example of the person that I want to become with Florencia. You have the marriage that I want to have with Florencia. I look up to you so much. So I want to ask you about that.
Obviously, I have an answer for this.
That's why I've been asking you all these questions. You have answers.
All human activity is happiness. We want to be happy. So I've studied this for thousands of hours over the years. When other people were going out to bars and restaurants, I went home and studied. And I studied psychology and metaphysics and philosophy and so on. What I found is the greatest enemy of happiness is negative emotions. So the great job of life is to eliminate negative emotions. Where do negative emotions come from? Negative emotions come from blaming someone or something else for something in your life that you don't like. When you stop blaming, all your negative emotions stop. It's like slap. And the way that you stop blaming is by accepting responsibility. Yeah. You say, I am responsible for my own life. I am responsible for what happens to me. I may not be responsible for this, but I'm responsible for how I respond. And so you make a decision, I'm not going to have negative emotions in my life. So how are negative emotions expressed? Through criticism. So with my wife, made it very clear to her, I would never criticize her for anything. There would be no criticism, no negative expression, nothing. The only thing I ever tell her is how much I love and respect her. And with my children, it's exactly the same thing. How much I love and respect them. There's no negativity. And if you can eliminate negativity from your family relationships, you have a beautiful situation, as you will have with Florencia, as you have with Margaret. I mean, it's just, you think you've gotten away with something. It's so beautiful to have. And the key is just do not say anything negative or bad about the people that you love. Just show how much you love them and be 100% totally in love with that person. And that's what Barbara and I say every day, that we're two of the luckiest people in the world because we have such a good relationship. And I'm sure you say that with Margaret, or you say that with Florencia.
My father was extremely positive like that. So I was fortunate to grow up in a home that was incredibly encouraging. But my father taught me another thing that was very important. I watched him very often serve my mom, do things for her. My dad lost his mother when he was 6 years old, and it left a hole in his heart. And if I've heard him once, I've heard him 1,000 times, said, well, I lost my mother when I was young. I wish I would have had a mother. And then he would look at us and he'd say to us, treat your mother with great love, great respect, do the dishes, do things for her, do that whole process. When I'm gone a lot, I'm gone a lot. When I come home, I try to set some time aside for us just to go, what do you want to do? Whatever she wants to do, we just go do it. I just take her to a movie. She wants to go to a movie, go to dinner. If we want to go to dinner, she can go shopping. We want to go shopping. I think maturity is the ability to put other people before yourself. And I think immaturity is the inability to do that. So I think in a relationship, marriage or any kind of relationship, I always want to give more than I receive. I always want to be a plus in people's lives, not a minus.
John, you had the ability to draw the very best out of people, and it's wonderful. I wanted to pass on something. When Barbara and I first got married, before we had children, I agreed with her that I would give her 51% of the vote in our home. Anything that had to do with the home, children, anything, she got 51%. Now, the business, the work that I do, that was my responsibility. But we've had this 51-49% for 45 years, and it's been perfect. And that's an idea that I might suggest to you, is give the woman 51%. And she's never made a mistake. Women are they're so smart, especially with regard to the family, that you give her 51% and then you'll probably never make another mistake in the rest of your life.
I think you got that down. I've often said a person that says they don't believe in compromise hasn't been married very long. There's always a lot of give and take and carry. But when the person knows that you put their interests first,
it changes the equation every time. And it's the difference between dating and marriage is that when you're dating somebody, you're just giving. Oh, let me open the door for you. Oh my gosh, can I get this for you? And it's just what can I do to bring you to me and entice you to marry me? It's give. And then when you get married, all of a sudden you sit down and say, now take care of me. And I tell people if they would never stop dating, their marriage could stay strong. But once you begin to think, okay, now that I'm married, you take care of me and my needs, now we got problems every time.
We are so blessed. We are living at the best time in all of human history. We're doing some of the best work with the best customers, with the best products and services. This is such a wonderful time to be alive.
Yeah. Thank you. And how often gatir? And you want one?
Oh, always.
You want a gatir?
The only thing I drink is this.
Sparkling water, but it's with a cat, so it does meow.
This is Spencer's.
And Florencia.
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't do a day without this in my life.
I love you, John. I end every day with this in my life.
So, one of the most important things for me to pass on to my audience is giving them the context on how to really commit themselves to greatness, commit themselves to serving, commit themselves to loving people. And I believe that when you love people more than you love the results, then you become successful. What's the advice that you would tell a young entrepreneur that wants to start a business and become very successful? That's a question for both of you.
It's a great question. Glad you asked it. Well, first of all, I tell people, be transformational, not transactional. I think the key to what I've done is I just value people greatly. The only reason I would be here today is because I value you. The only reason. And because I value you, I'll give you my best. So every day I value people. Every day I think of ways to add value to people. Every day I look for ways to add value to people. Every day I do things that add value to people. And every day I encourage other people to add value to people. That's who I am. That's how I live. That's what I do. And because of that, all the blessings that I've received, which are far more than I could ever imagine, are given to me for the right reasons. I didn't try to make money off somebody in the beginning. I didn't try to win and they lose. I just tried to care, love, value people. And because I'm a person of faith, the reason I do that is because God values everybody. So I value everybody, and I try to treat them with high road leadership, which is I want more for them than I want from them. I do the right things for the right reasons. And when you put all that together, it's a beautiful life. And I've done some good things. I've done some things that weren't so smart. I've not always won. I've lost some. But I've never taken advantage of anybody. I've never one time in my life have I ever left the table and I thought, I'm a giver. I'm a plus, not a minus. I'm only out here. I'm 77. The only reason I'm here is because I value you. And when Spencer talked about your potential and how proud he was of you and how he loves mentoring you and how he loves growing you, all those things, and because I value Spencer, obviously, but I value you. Somebody asked me one time, he said, how can you value me when you don't know me? Well, I said, I don't need to know you. I know God. He created you. If he created you, why wouldn't I value you the same? That's kind of who I am.
Zig Ziglar told a story many years ago about this little boy who was not very popular at school and was rejected, and he was very negative and so on. And they asked him, for some reason, if he would talk to this little boy and maybe change his attitude. And so he met with the little boy, say 10 years old. And he said, who is this boy's father? Well, nobody knew. He didn't know his father. He said, I know who your father is. It's God. You're a child of God. And the little boy was so overwhelmed by that, and so was everybody listening, that he changed his attitude toward himself, and people changed their attitude toward him, as he was a child of God. And you think that's true for each person. They're a child of God.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, I love that. Wow. That's who you are. Yeah, that's who we are.
I don't ever say this, but when I wake up in the morning and when I go to sleep at night, I say the same words. I say, thank you, God, for all my blessings. And when I wake up, thank you, God, for all my blessings. And when I go to sleep or I'm driving around, I just say, thank you, God, for all my blessings. I love that. And I learned many years ago that the more you give thanks for things, the more things you have to give thanks for. So if you thank God for your blessings, you'll have more blessings, and you'll just attract them into your life. You don't have to worry where they're coming from or what they cost or everything else. But you talk about an attitude of gratitude, just going through life being grateful for everything that's good in your life. You have to do is you thank God for your members of your family, and you thank God for your staff, and thank God for your clients. You thank God for your friends in the audience and so on. It just is because they make us possible. That's so true. Yeah, it's so great, so good. We love you guys very much.
Do you have time for one more question, John?
I have time for one more, and then I got to go.
Perfect. So this is a question on the habits. What would you say it's an important habit for success? Would you say waking up early is important for success, or what would you say an important, like one of the most important habits that you've had to be successful?
It's a great question.
Well, I'm going to answer that question once you leave.
Well, but I'm going to ask for a recording of it so I can get the S.
Of it is being absolutely clear about what it is you really want. Yeah, and then what you're focusing on that more than anything else. Setting goals for yourself. And for me, it was life transforming. And so I wrote the best-selling book in the world now on goal setting in 39 languages. And it's being reprinted. It's been read by millions of people. And so that's what I would say, is be really clear about what you want.
I need to hear that recording and then write about it in a book. And I'll give Brian all the credit. I won't give him the royalties, but I'll give him the credit.
Let me give you one word when you talk about habits, and the word is anticipation. I have a great sense of anticipation that good things will happen to me and to other people. So I get up at usually 4 to 4:30 every morning. I'm an early riser. And when I wake up in the morning, I put my robe on and go to my office. I just anticipate the good things that are going to happen to the people I'm going to speak to or the people I'm writing the book for. I mean, when I woke up this morning in town here and I knew I was going to speak to you and I knew I was going to be able to be with Brian and ask questions and be with Spencer, my life was full of anticipation. I could hardly wait. In fact, about 4 o'clock this morning, I wanted to call all of you and tell you, I'm ready right now. Let's go. And aren't you glad I didn't have your phone number? But I truly do anticipate good things for people that I care for. I anticipate good things for myself. And I have found that anticipation allows me to live a life of excitement and enthusiasm. I don't get bored. I love my life. I love what I'm doing. I deeply care for the people I do it with. And so, I just anticipate. And when you live a life full of anticipation, you never procrastinate because you know it's going to be good. If I live a life full of grief and negativism, I'll procrastinate all of my life. So I move quick. I act on it quickly because I anticipate the best for you. When I teach in a world of possibilities. I lift your lid because I believe in you probably more than some of you even believe in yourself. So anticipation is just a great way for me to live my life. And by the way, one more thought on this, and then I sometimes teach what I call advance attraction, which basically is we attract the people that as how we think about them and what we do with them. And so I think that when you live a life of anticipation, you attract the best people to you. I think you attract their best works. And so anticipation is just, I don't think you ever get old if your life is full of anticipation. And I don't ever plan on getting old. I'm going to live till I die.
Yeah, my name is John, and I'm your friend. That's so beautiful.
John, what you were saying is so profoundly important. I'm sure you've heard the affirmation, I believe that something wonderful is going to happen to me today.
Yes.
I believe that something wonderful is going to happen to me today. And I think something wonderful has happened to us today.
It definitely has. Thank you so much, Joel. I love you. Let me give you a big hug and a kiss. Love you, buddy. Love you.
I love you so very.
Please, see you very soon. Please.
Give it up for my hero right here, Brian Treatment.
Can I get a picture with you two?
325. Yeah. We got to do better now here, dog.
But I love you so much. Thank you. Oh my gosh, you travel well. I will. Thank you so much.